I love little children, but they keep you awake at night. But when they get to a certain age, why, they keep on asking. And it's the but that places me in the story we've just heard. Because the disciples loved little children, but they enjoyed listening to Jesus, and Jesus was wise, and they wanted to hear. They enjoyed Jesus being kind, and they wanted to feel his love. And above all, they knew Jesus to be a peaceful man, and the little children were disturbing that. Nevertheless, Jesus said in the old language, "Suffer the little children to come to me." Or in modern language, allow them in, welcome them. And why did Jesus want the little children there? Of course, he was kind and welcoming, but surely it's more than just Jesus was a nice man. He recognized in little children that they were fun and they were delightful, which all parents, even when they're really tired, need to be reminded of. But take it one step further. Jesus knew and saw instinctively that little children can be naive and innocent and therefore vulnerable. And in the light of that, we know, whether we're parents or not, that we want to protect. And in the presence of little children, our skills and our talent and our desire to look after others are drawn out of us even more. We are changed, and that's one of the reasons why Jesus wanted little children there, not for their sake, but because they make us better people. So far, so good, but I think there's even more. Why did Jesus want little children in the center? He says, "Suffer the little children to come to me, for to such belong the kingdom of God." Now, in my experience, belonging is a dangerous and difficult word with little children. I say so because I have two older brothers. And when I grew up playing with them, the word belong so often came to mean that my older, bigger, stronger brothers could grab the toy and say, "It belongs to me," with all the implication that it's not yours, it's mine. And that attitude is so easy to take into our adult life. That sense of things that belong to me, do so by diminishing your life. Whereas we know that there are so many things, and usually the most important things in life, that can belong to me without taking them away from you. So belonging always triggers for me slightly worrying overtones. But now, without disturbing Margot too much, just if you can, turn and look now. There is Margot where she belongs, on Imogen's lap. That's the belonging that I think Jesus was talking about. You did that so well, Imogen. I hadn't planned it on my sermon. But that's the belonging that Jesus is talking about. That sense that Margot is exactly where she is meant to be. We belong in the kingdom of God. We belong to sit on God's lap where we are meant to be. And as adults, that can go wrong. It can harden into we're entitled to that, or it can soften into too much humility. No, I don't deserve anything. Neither of which is right. We belong. We belong with God. We belong to God. There are times we belong on God's lap. And I think that is nowhere better expressed than in the prayer that Jesus himself gave us, which begins, "Our Father in heaven." That phrase is about putting you on God's lap. where you belong. What date is it today? 1st of August. 1st of August, 1833, the Slavery Abolition Act was eventually passed. Many of us will know about Wilberforce and all he did to ban the slave trade, but owning slaves was still allowed until the 1st of August, 1833. Slavery Abolition Act. And yet even there, that was not enough. And they needed to pass more acts of parliament over the next 10, 20 years. And even now, we're still having to undo the dark side of slavery. And I mention it because the pattern, historic in terms of slavery, is that one we need to learn ourselves, each one of us. We learn, we make mistakes, we forgive and are forgiven, and we move on. And again, that is the heart of the Lord's Prayer. Give us today our daily bread, forgive, and let us be ones who forgive others. There it is. This is the pattern that we hope Margot is to grow up, sitting on God's lap and learning both to receive daily bread and to forgive and be forgiven. So when Jesus took someone like Margot and said, "To such belong the kingdom of God," not only was he being kind and compassionate, not only was he recognizing how fun and delightful they can be, but he was also saying what we know in the Lord's Prayer as that final thing: the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours. Jesus was saying the present and the future, and once you've learnt and been forgiven, you change, and more is possible. So not just the present, but the future and the beyond are yours and mine, says God. When he took a little child and put the child in the center, Jesus was giving us a role model for learning and relearning and going on, delighting in that potential of being a child of God, all of which is expressed in the prayer we can say each day. When Jesus took a little child and valued them, he was giving those of us who say, "I love little children, but," a chance still to learn and come close to the kingdom of God.